There are many people that face really tough days before they get their next paycheck. Let's talk about this. Back in a minute. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hi, this is Jan. I love helping people keep some more of their own hard earned money. Welcome to the Save Money and More with Jan channel. Let's talk today on a pretty serious note. There are 60% of Americans who live paycheck to paycheck. That is a very not easy thing to do. And you're probably wondering, why on planet Earth am I looking at a merry-go-round or a carousel in the back of my image? Well, for two reasons. Number one, I love carousels. Anybody that knows me knows that I love carousels. And I found this and I thought this was so cute. But I thought about something. Living paycheck to paycheck in its own way is kind of like living on a carousel, but not necessarily in a fun way. And especially those struggling days before that. Let's create a better opportunity to avoid such a struggle. But before we do that, I want to remind everyone to do this. Don't forget to jump in, click like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so very much. So, what can we do to avoid those struggle days? Well, number one, when you get your paycheck, your next paycheck that you're anticipating, immediately take at least 35 to 40 bucks out of that money, put it in an envelope, put it in a drawer, put it in a coffee can, put it in a purse. I don't care where you put it, just put it away towards that final week before you get paid. Ah, this is a great idea. And another thing, if find ways, well, actually make it your business. I would make it my business to find ways to avoid the struggle by doing certain things these weeks before while I have that opportunity. Do anything possible. Like, for example, I know it sounds like a boring, repetitive thing, but be mindful of the stuff that we purchase outside during those few weeks. Because if we're struggling right before payday, that tells me something. That tells me a couple of things. Probably overspending, probably under planning, and probably not being mindful of those little daily things. You see, those are the little daily things that add up and cause that problem. You don't want to be, no one wants to be in that position a few days before, like let's say the week before, going a whole week without enough cash in your pocket to get around or for necessary things or for groceries and so on. And speaking of groceries, when you get your next paycheck, that's the time to go over your inventory right before you go to the grocery store and be sure to plan for a few pantry items that will keep shelf stable items that you have. See, a lot of people, when they think of stockpiling and long term pantry items, many people are thinking so far ahead in the future. But the reality is, for some folks, for many folks actually, the future is a little closer to home than, like, let's say, very long term. So let's say that a person gets paid once a month. But once they surpass week three, that final week before payday could really be a struggle. But knowing that there are canned items or items that you freeze, and I'll get into that in a second, available, always ready to have that final week before payday so available of stuff that you already have. You won't have to spend any money at all. No one has to spend any extra money at all during that very challenging week before payday, and especially when people have children and stuff of that nature. Now, let's talk about the freezer for a minute. All right. A lot of food goes to waste, whether unwittingly or whatever reason. A lot of food goes to waste. And I think part of it is when people put out food family style, like all sorts of dishes and casseroles just plop down on the center of the table, and people just plopping food on their plate, not even being mindful of what they're really getting. If you're struggling as far as making ends meet, may I offer a suggestion? Number one, the person that's cooking the food maybe conserve the food, stand at the stove or stand at the counter, take your own ladle it into everybody's plate. Anybody wants more, you give it to them. But I wouldn't suggest leaving everything family style on the table, because how many times people overtly take food and then nobody wants to eat food that somebody else ate from. I just believe that. It's really not a great practice anyway. So I'm just saying avoid that possibility. A person could always get a little more. No one's saying not to have that happen, but to be mindful when portioning out the food. Sometimes it's just worth it. That little exercise, I mean, enter ways to avoid food waste. We don't want food waste, and that's very important. Now, when it comes to those leftover good vegetables or whatever you have left, please be sure to have many of those plastic food saver trays and freeze them up. You can turn all those items into a brand new do over meal. A do over meal is certainly much more welcome than a zero meal at the end of the month. These are just, little things that we could do to avoid that situation. So portioning out meals ahead of time instead of serving family style is actually a great idea. Consider consider the thought of being able to put away X number of dollars in cash each week into that envelope, that sock drawer, that coffee can, like you did the first time around. See what you could do. Find a challenging thing. Say, for example, that a person spends, without realizing it, let's say $14 a week on bottled water outside. Let's say the bottled water is $2 a bottle, and the person goes out and spends $14 a week on bottled water. Find ways to perhaps take your own water that you purified at home, pack that up. That is, if you do the math, doing the math tells me that I would be saving $64 a week. Am I correct? 54 or 64, whatever. Okay, 4 times 40, 4 times 10 is 40, blah, blah, blah. 50, okay, 56 with a 5, 5, 6, $56 a month save. Consider that going into that last week of the month is amazing. Now, finally, on that last week of the month for food, for dinners, keep definitely low ingredient meals together. For example, pasta with sauce. If you have pasta with meat sauce, if you buy a jar of sauce that, if you like meat sauce on sale, there's your meal. Just that simple. Pasta with meat sauce. Does it sound exciting? No. Does it fill someone's stomach? Yes. Yes. And of course, you take down some of the leftover vegetables or prepare an inexpensive, not too fancy garden salad with simple ingredients. And you have yourself a rounded off meal. And there's nothing wrong during that struggle week about having breakfast at dinner time. These are all budget busters, these are all budget savers. No one goes hungry. That final week of the month, plan ahead to have things to put together. For example, ingredients to make a banana bread or a walnut bread, or an apple bread, things of that nature. Or if you don't like things like that, some other thing that is delicious and filling and somewhat of a treat. You could figure it out. Or sometimes boxed cake mix goes on sale. Put that away so that you can make some boxed cake mix at that during that week. I like to take a box cake mix. I get the 2 pans of the cake, the rounds, but I only use 1 round at a time for a cake, not using a double layer cake. Single layer cake. These are definitely budget budget helpers for sure. So these are quick little tips to get you through that tough time that week before payday. By starting from the second that you get your paycheck, plan ahead for that final week, and it will not be so bad. And if you find yourself with extra money, all the better. Carry that forward to the next month. Very, very good. Let's go on to remind you that life is fun, and this is happy music, and I'll be right back. It is amazing what a little bit of planning ahead can do. Have a wonderful day. Don't forget to click like, share, and subscribe to the channel.